Man, let me tell you, this matchup felt like one of those afternoons when you expect to see a sharp, well-oiled offense. The kind of game where everything clicks early in the season because practically the entire unit returned. You look at this offensive roster and think that with so many pieces kept together, the team would glide across the field as if replaying the same script from last year. But the moment the ball was kicked, it became obvious that losing an important voice on the headset changes everything. I had been saying this all off-season, even when people rolled their eyes at me. Losing the mind that truly commanded the offensive vision weighed heavily, and promoting someone who was already being questioned for the passing game did nothing to help. It felt like a decision pulled out of a hat, completely backwards. And the result is this clogged-up offense that makes anyone lose their patience. But before diving into this mountain of problems, there is something nobody can ignore. The team won scoring only 16 points and held one of the most explosive offenses in the league to just 9. That is not a small feat. We are talking about a squad used to dropping nearly 36 points on the scoreboard regularly, and this time they could barely breathe. That says a lot about the defense, and even more about how brutal the win was for anyone trying to throw the ball. People who do not live in the area have no idea what that felt like. Everything was swaying, as if the entire city had turned into a giant wind tunnel. You cannot completely blame the quarterback in conditions like that. Even the other side was suffering the same way, missing throw after throw and salvaging their numbers. Only through a few short passes turned into long gains by a speedy running back who worked miracles with the ball in his hands. But the defense showed up like a nightmare for the opposing offense, and remember how, in the early weeks, there was that doubt lingering about the pass rush. The talk was all about how the edge guys still had not shown anything. It looked like everything depended on the interior, which was doing its part. But the guys on the outside could not get going. Then the trade window came. A reinforcement arrived that many people did not fully believe in. And suddenly the entire rhythm of the unit changed. The simple fact that he stepped on the field elevated everyone around him. Pressures, sacks, perfectly timed hits. He became the spark that group desperately needed. Even players who looked stuck in mud found life again. Out of nowhere, the entire defensive line lit up. The interior became a wall, and the opposing quarterback started throwing as if he were being chased by ghosts from every direction. The wind made everything worse, of course, but you could clearly see he had lost emotional control. There were wild throws. Balls spiked into the dirt, passes launched to nobody, and that plays right into the hands of a team fighting to keep the top seed, because once the calendar flips to January, nobody wants to face this group in bone-chilling weather. The Dome teams spend the whole season without feeling a true gust of wind, then hit the playoffs, step into Philadelphia, and get slapped in the face by a cold that feels like a punch. There is no glamour, no comfort, no warm roof. It is snow, ice, relentless noise, and a defensive line flying downhill. That is exactly why locking up the first seed matters so much. It is survival. It is real advantage. It is climate being used as a weapon, and that is why this win, even ugly, was supposed to send a message across the entire league. But then we flip to the other side of the ball, and the story changes. The offense looks stuck in the same cycle as always, the same problem repeating week after week. The Stars simply cannot drop passes like that. One drop, then another, then 3 in the same game. That kills any rhythm. And when one of the biggest playmakers on the team gives up on a route because he is frustrated with the lack of targets, the whole building starts to shake. You cannot demand the spotlight and at the same time hit the brakes in the middle of a play. It is contradictory. And it hurts both on the field and in the locker room. The quarterback did not escape the blame either, even with that insane wind. There are some reads you just cannot miss. A running back wide open on a short route, nobody around him, is the kind of gift every offense dreams of capitalizing on. You have to hit that throw. It does not matter if the wind is blowing 30, 40, 50 miles per hour. There are passes that simply cannot sail off target. And that was one of them. And across from him, the play caller needs to show imagination. Not the same predictable routes over and over again, routes so obvious that anyone in the stands can call them out before the snap. If I am sitting on my couch knowing what is coming, imagine a defensive coordinator watching it unfold for the 3rd, 4th, 5th time. It gets even worse when you sense the entire offense rolling its eyes whenever something goes wrong. The offensive line, even with injuries, needs to be far more solid if this team truly expects to compete for the top spot until the end. That group needs to rediscover its identity because without protection there is no passing game. No rushing rhythm, no momentum at all, and then, when you look at all of this with the mind of someone who deals with numbers every day, this offense becomes a financial headache. You see massive contracts being poured into a unit that produces so little. And the question becomes unavoidable. Why? Why invest so heavily in such a loaded arsenal just to score 16 points? After spending the whole game getting the ball with short fields, why build a shiny offensive tree if nobody seems interested in decorating it properly? If the plan is to keep winning while scoring as little as possible, controlling the clock, and leaning entirely on the defense, then maybe it is time to shift the financial weight toward the side of the ball that is actually carrying the team. Because there are defenders who deserve a truckload of money, players who have become pillars, who changed the identity of the entire unit, who will not be satisfied with being underpaid for much longer. This is the type of game that makes it clear who is elevating the team and who is just present. And when you see the defense stopping fourth down after fourth down, shutting everything down, giving the offense short field after short field, and the scoreboard still refuses to move, it becomes obvious why so many fans are pulling their hair out. It is a win, an important one, but a win that came with a giant warning. Flashing across the screen, something in this offense needs to change, and it needs to change fast. And the crazy thing is that this team has every tool it needs to avoid falling into this mess. It is not like the cupboard is empty or the weapons are mediocre. These guys were built to attack, to stretch the field, to force defenses into panic mode, but instead, every drive feels like someone pulled the plug halfway through. It is as if the offense is stuck in a loop, running the same plays, repeating the same hesitations, and waiting for the defense to bail them out again. You watch the receivers coming back to the huddle shaking their heads, the quarterback tapping his helmet trying to reset, and the coaching staff staring at the play sheet like they misplaced the page that actually works. That kind of energy spreads, and once it spreads, it eats away at everything. What makes it even more frustrating is how often this offense gets the ball in situations most teams beg for, short fields over and over again. Possessions starting already close to the edge of scoring range, and still nothing seems to ignite. It turns every stalled drive into a reminder that something is deeply out of sync. You cannot keep wasting opportunities handed to you on a silver platter by a defense that is playing like every snap is a playoff down eventually. That imbalance cracks a team in half if nothing changes. You can feel tension in the play calling too, as if the offense is terrified of making mistakes and ends up making even more. Because of that fear, instead of trusting the talent, the roots shrink, the creativity disappears, and the rhythm collapses when the ball finally goes downfield. It feels more like a desperate attempt than a calculated strike. There is hesitation in every step, every cut, every throw. It is the kind of thing film rooms pick apart mercilessly. And you can bet opponents are circling weaknesses with a red marker the size of a highway sign. That is where leadership becomes essential. Someone needs to grab this offense and shake it awake. Whether that is the quarterback setting a tone, the receivers demanding sharper execution from themselves, or the coaching staff admitting that the current approach is not working, other teams around the league adjust on the fly. But this offense sometimes looks like it is waiting for a miracle instead of engineering one. It is not a personnel issue. It is not a lack of talent. It is a mindset. And if the mindset does not shift, the team risks dragging the same sloppy habits into games that matter infinitely more. Meanwhile, the defense continues stacking performances that would make any coach ecstatic. You see veterans guiding younger players in real time, pulling them into better alignment, correcting angles, tightening coverage. You see big men in the trenches collapsing pockets and forcing mistakes, linebackers reading plays before they unfold, defensive backs playing sticky coverage that refuses to give up anything easy. It is the kind of defensive personality that championship contenders rely on. You can sense confidence in every tackle and every hit, the belief that they can suffocate anyone who steps onto the field with them. But defenses, no matter how dominant, eventually hit a wall if they are carrying more weight than they should. When a defense forces a turnover or stops a crucial fourth down, that is the perfect moment for an offense to strike. Those are the gut punches that separate good teams from great teams. When the offense falls flat after those moments, it feels like a balloon deflating. All the wind that the defense just fought for blows away in seconds. A team cannot keep surviving like that forever, and everyone in the building knows it. What makes this situation so intriguing is the contrast. One side is playing with fire in its chest. The other is playing with a glass of water balanced on its head. One is thriving on aggression. The other is folding into caution. When the schedule gets tougher and the temperature drops even more, the offense will not just need to be competent, it will need to be fierce. There will be moments in January where the defense gives everything it has, and the offense will have to put the finishing blow on the table. Playoff football does not reward hesitation or predictability. It rewards teams that punch first and keep punching. And if this team wants to be the one hosting games deep into winter, the offense must turn the page. It has to rediscover what made it dangerous. What made defenses fear mismatches all across the field. You can feel the frustration from fans. You can hear it in the stadium. You can see it in the players' body language. But frustration does not fix anything unless it turns into urgency. When the film gets reviewed, those drops, those misreads, those lazy routes, and those predictable calls cannot just be noted. They need to be attacked and corrected with urgency. The bright side is that the potential is still there. You can see flashes in certain drives where the offense suddenly remembers who it is supposed to be. You see the quarterback speeding up his decisions, the receiver snapping into sharper routes, the run game finding daylight, but flashes are not enough this late in the season. Consistency is what seals playoff paths, clinches home field advantage, and builds belief inside the locker room. Every team with championship aspiration hits a stretch like this where one side of the ball has to wake up. And the good news is that this offense has all the tools to do exactly that. It just has to stop treating every possession like a minefield. It has to stop shrinking when the moment demands boldness. This is the time of year when great offenses lean into their identity instead of hiding from it. The good thing is that all the pieces are there. This is not a roster searching for talent. This is a roster searching for rhythm, and rhythm can be fixed. Rhythm can be rebuilt. Rhythm can click out of nowhere and completely transform a team. Maybe it takes one drive. Maybe it takes one big play. Maybe it takes one game where everything finally aligns, but it has to happen soon. Because the defense is out here performing like a unit ready to lead a deep postseason run. And all they need is the offense to meet them halfway. There is still time, and there are still opportunities. Especially with the upcoming matchups that give the team another shot. To get the offense recalibrated, the wind will not always be this intense. The conditions will not always be this chaotic. And the chances will not always be this abundant. What matters now is whether the group can look at this film, own the mistakes, and find a way to bring the spark back before the stakes get even higher. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. A hush swept through league circles after an unexpected leak ignited one of the loudest rumors of the season. The Philadelphia Eagles have reportedly reached a deal with a major AFC superstar, a move that has sent shockwaves through front offices across the NFL. Nothing is confirmed. No official announcement has surfaced, and yet the buzz refuses to die down. Executives are whispering, players are texting, and social media is bracing for a potential meltdown as fans dissect every clue that might hint at the identity of this mystery acquisition. The rumor began when an unnamed source close to the Eagles' personnel department hinted that the organization had pulled off something big enough to tilt the balance of power. That alone was enough to spark speculation. But the situation escalated once insiders from rival teams admitted they were caught off guard. Some suggested the player in question is known not only for game-changing performances, but for a fierce reputation that instantly elevates any locker room. Others hinted at a high-profile contract restructuring that would have been required to make such a move possible. Philadelphia's front office has remained completely silent, offering no denial, no confirmation. Not even a playful nod to acknowledge the growing storm. That silence has only fueled the frenzy further, with debates erupting over whether the Eagles are preparing for a dramatic strategic shift, or simply tightening their grip on an already ambitious roster. What truly unsettled the rest of the league was the phrase repeated by several insiders. They didn't just make a move, they made the move. Coaches in other organizations are reportedly scrambling to reassess depth charts, while analysts are predicting ripple effects that could influence trades, draft boards, and off-season negotiations. For now, all that exists is a swirling cloud of speculation, a fan base on edge, and a league waiting for the next tremor. If this leak proves true, the Eagles may have just rewritten the immediate future of the NFL, and they've done it without saying a single word. that's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.